So this happened in 2011, so the exact dialogue may have escaped my memory a bit, but the situation is something I'll never forget. Also, AIM was still pretty active during this time, and so was video chatting. Think Tiny Chat. This is important for later. I was on an online dating site. I won't say which one because I'll be dragged mercilessly in the comments, and was talking to this guy. I was 31 at the time and he was 28. We talked about 6 weeks before I gave him my phone number, and we took it offline to calling and texting for another couple weeks. 2 months after our initial chat, we were texting and he told me that he was out having a few beers at a bar near my house. He asked what I was doing and asked if I wanted to come out, but I had a very long day at work and didn't feel like going to a bar. I'm also not a big drinker. I invited him over to my place. After he finished at the bar and he accepted, I figured I would be okay since I do keep firearms for protection and know how to defend myself if needed. I also had a webcam. I took a shower so I wouldn't smell like a water buffalo on a hot day. The air went out at work, put on some makeup and got dressed to wait. He then called and said he was outside my house. I clicked record on my computer's webcam program and turned off my monitor and went to let him in. It was around 10 p.m. and when he comes in, we go back to my bedroom because my living room was being remodeled. We're sitting on the bed chatting for about an hour, talking about everything under the sun. The conversation flowed. He was very handsome and so easy to be comfortable with. We got on the subject of firearms and I showed him mine. About 15 minutes later, he asked for some water, so I go to the kitchen to get him a bottle. When I came back, he said he got a phone call and had to leave. After he left, I looked on my nightstand where I put the firearm down after showing him and noticed that it was gone. I looked everywhere for it, thinking I'd put it down somewhere else. Nope, not there. I then played back the recording from my webcam program and sure enough, shows him grabbing it and putting it in his hoodie. I was terrified at that point. He knew where I lived, had my firearm, and he left his phone on my bed. Right then his phone rings and I answer it. Come to find out, he's married. His wife was calling him wondering where he was. I told her everything, including the fact that he stole my firearm and I had video evidence and was calling the police on him. Next thing I know, he's banging on my door, my firearm in his hand, asking me for his phone. The conversation went like this. I need my phone. Give it to me. Me. Not opening the door but yelling through the window. Take the clip out of my firearm, empty the chamber, throw the clip into the bushes and the one in the chamber across the road and put it on the ground. No. Give me my phone. I'm on the phone with your wife at the moment and I have you on video stealing it from me. I put his wife on speaker. A whole bunch of expletives. Him being shocked, runs and gets in his car then comes back. I threw your gun in the ditch, he said. At this point, I make him empty his pockets, take his pants off, take his hoodie off, and show me that he doesn't have my firearm on him. All the while his wife is on the phone. I go outside and get in his car, in the driver's seat, and tell him to take me where he threw my firearm. He proceeds to tell me that I don't know how hard it is for him, being a felon, not being allowed to own a gun ever because of a mistake he made. The mistake? Domestic violence involving a gun. We get up the road and he tells me it's there in the ditch. Then I realize the situation I'm in. I can get out of the car and go get it, leaving him to do whatever to me if he chooses. He was 6'4" and 225 pounds. I was 5'3" and 135 pounds at the time. Or I could make him go get it, taking a chance of him seriously hurting me. I took that chance since I was on the phone with his wife and my phone with 911. He retrieves my stuff, brings it to the car, and I drive back to my house and wait on the police. I get out of the car and he gets in the driver's seat. I'm still on the phone with the police. I walk around the back of his car to get his license plate number, and he just puts his car in reverse, hits me and takes off. I found him later that evening. He still had the clip and one in the chamber in his pocket, so now he's enjoying time in prison. Okay, so I've been trying to figure out how to write this for like 2 weeks now because every time I start, I either freak myself out all over again or it just doesn't come out right. But people keep asking me why I quit the Speedway job so suddenly, and I'm tired of just saying it wasn't for me because that's not really true. And honestly, what happened deserves to be written down somewhere, so here it is. For context, I was working the closing shift at a Speedway like 3 nights a week. I'd been there since June, so about 4 months when this happened. It was me and this girl Ashley, whom I actually really liked, and we'd usually close together, which made it fine. Like, we'd talk and mess around at the time went fast. But Ashley had switched her availability for school, and for about 3 weeks before this happened, I'd been closing alone. I want to say I was never like scared to be there alone because it was a gas station on a main road and there were always at least a few people coming in and out even late at night. It felt safe enough. I had my phone and I knew where the panic button was behind the counter, and I'd been trained on all of it. I genuinely was not a person who got freaked out easily. Just need you to know that before I get into it. It was a Thursday. October, so it was already dark by like 6. Ashley had left at 9, and it was just me until 11 when we fully closed. I had the radio going behind the counter, and I was doing the cooler inventory on my little clipboard, which is genuinely the most boring task in human history, and I was mostly just thinking about what I was going to eat when I got home. The store phone rang at like 10 past 8. We got calls sometimes, people asking if we had certain stuff in stock or whatever, so I picked it up and said, "Thank you for calling Speedway. This is Brianna. How can I help you?" And just nothing. Complete silence on the other end. I said hello a couple of times and then figured it was a bad connection or a misdial and hung up. Went back to my clipboard. At 8:25, the phone rings again. I picked it up and said the same thing, but the same silence. Held it for a few seconds and hung up. At this point, I was mostly just annoyed because the phone was behind the counter and every time it rang, I had to stop what I was doing and walk back over there. I genuinely thought it was some kid prank calling. Like that still happens apparently, and I was more irritated than anything. Around 8:40, it rings again. 9 o'clock again. By this point, the every 15 minutes thing had started to register, and that was when I stopped being annoyed, and it started feeling like something else completely. Like there was something about how consistent it was that felt intentional, in a way that random prank calls usually aren't. I picked up the 9 o'clock one and didn't say anything. Just listened. And that's when I heard it. Breathing. Not heavy or dramatic, just quiet and steady and completely deliberate. Like somebody holding the phone and just breathing into it, waiting. I hung up and stood behind the counter for a second and realized my heart was going. And I felt stupid about it because it was probably still just some idiot kid, but I couldn't quite get back to normal after that one. I texted my friend Maya something like, "Some creepy person keeps calling the store, LOL." And she sent back a bunch of skull emojis, and I laughed and felt better and refilled the hot dog roller thing and tried to move on. The call stopped after 9. And I know this sounds weird, but the silence after was almost worse. Like my body had gotten used to waiting for the phone to ring every 15 minutes. And when it stopped, I didn't feel relieved. I just felt like something had shifted. Can't explain it better than that. It just felt like whatever was on the other end of those calls had stopped calling because it was done with that part. I was straightening the chip rack by the front windows around 9 when one of the front door handles moved. Not open, moved. Like somebody had grabbed it from the outside and pulled once, testing it and let go. I looked up immediately and there was nobody visible through the glass. Just the parking lot and the pumps and my car sitting under the light. I stared at the door for a long moment and told myself it was the wind, even though I knew it wasn't because it was a handle, not a push door, and wind doesn't grab handles. I went back to the chip rack. A little after 9, the side door rattled. The side door is by the coolers on the east wall. It's like a secondary entrance that most regular customers don't really use, more of a local thing. I heard it from across the store, that same single testing rattle and then nothing. I walked to where I could see it from, and the little window on it showed me nothing but the side lot and a dumpster in darkness. I went behind the counter and just stood there. Then the back door. The back door is in the stock room. It's not visible from the sales floor. It's not visible from the street. It leads to a narrow service alley behind the building, and this is the thing that got me. The thing that made my stomach just drop completely, because that door is not something that a random person wandering around would just find and try. You'd have to know the building and you'd have to know it was there. It didn't just rattled. It rattled and then the handle went down slowly all the way, like somebody pushing it as far as it could go before the lock caught it. Then it was held there for a second before releasing. Like whoever's on the other side just wanted me to know they tried it. I turned the lights off in the back half of the store and went into the stock room and got behind a shelf unit in the corner. Called 911. I was whispering and the dispatcher was calm and good and told me to stay on the line, that somebody was on the way. I had my knees pulled up to my chest behind the shelf of motor oil, and I was staring at the back door trying to not make a sound. It was quiet for a few minutes and I started to think maybe they were gone. Maybe the police would get here and find nothing and I'd feel stupid and go home. Then the back door handle went down again, slower this time, all the way down and held there, and I was watching the door flex slightly in the frame from the presence of someone leaning on it from the other side, and I put my hand over my mouth and didn't breathe. It was released. Then I heard something at the bottom of the door. Soft sound, paper on concrete, and a folded piece of paper slid through the gap underneath the door and sat on the stockroom floor. I did not touch it. I told the dispatcher and she told me not to touch it, and I just sat there staring at it on the floor until I heard the front door and the officer's voice calling out, announcing himself. They found nobody. Checked the whole building. Checked the alley. Checked the street. Whoever it was gone. They unfolded the paper with gloves and showed it to me, and I wish they had it. It was a drawing of the inside of the store. Hand-drawn accurate. The counter and the coolers and the chip racks and the stock room all laid out correctly. My name was written in the middle of the sales floor. On the back was a sketch of the parking lot with my car drawn in and circled, my actual car. The dented white Civic I'd been driving since I was 16, and at the bottom was my closing schedule for the next 2 weeks, correct down to the exact days and hours. The phone calls came back to a payphone 4 blocks away. The detective showed me a still from a security camera on the payphone, a figure in a dark hoodie making call after call, never once turning toward the camera, definitely not by accident, purposely keeping their face away from it across every single call for over an hour. I quit the next morning. I didn't even go back in to get my stuff. I just called and quit over the phone, and my manager didn't really argue about it, which tells me she probably understood why. 2 weeks later, I got a text from a girl named Courtney who had worked that same closing shift at the same location and quit suddenly about 8 months before I started. She'd seen something on my Instagram about it. She told me the same thing had happened to her. The calls and the doors, and the note slid under the back. I asked her what her note said. She said it was a drawing of the store with her name written in the middle of it. Different name, same handwriting. I haven't worked a closing shift anywhere since, and I genuinely don't think I ever will again. I still don't know who it was, and as far as I know, nobody does. The case is open, I think, but I haven't heard anything in a while, and I've kind of stopped expecting to. I just needed this written down somewhere. I needed it to be real outside of my own head. So I began college really young. I was barely 17, going to university for my 3rd year in dancing ballet. My grandma and I had left California so I could pursue dance and various other interests, and she could see her friends and do what she pleased. This was supposed to be a constant summer for us. I wouldn't consider myself to do anything to attract unwanted attention. I'm pretty tall and willowy, Middle Eastern, and I go out of my way to be put together. I'm exotic, but it was one of those hot summers, and we were visiting San Francisco for a few months before heading back to Seattle and resuming our schedule and travel and dance. We landed in San Francisco and met my grandma's friend Sophie, and we were taken to her house. We entered the house, and that's when I met Anton. Anton wasn't American, so he had that going for him. He was European, rail thin, taller than a skyscraper, and quite attractive. He also happened to have these dark Ted Bundy eyes. He fixed me with an intense stare and opened his mouth and said, "Wow, if I'd known you'd been flying in, I would have come to pick you up." He left the room, and Grandma's friend, Anne, Sophie's sister, told us that Anton was her grandson and staying with her for the summer, and that he liked the house spotless. We'd been flying all day, and so I decided to unpack and shower. I have OCD, and so I like to have my things perfectly organized. Calfskin, satin, and canvas ballet shoes all had their own place in the drawers. My point shoes had a very different place. My leotards and dance skirts had a place. Every single one of my scrunches had one. Panties were arranged by the color of lace and satin, and tights and leg warmers were together. My point is that everything went away properly, in a way that couldn't be disturbed without me absolutely knowing. I'd leave for ballet every morning at 6 a.m. and arrive back at 3 p.m. like clockwork. At first, I noticed small things, but I was truly happy, and I'd started this natural medicine routine for my OCD that damn near eliminated it. The first thing I noticed was that my panties were not in order, then my tights, and then my scrunchie. But me being not me, I brushed it off. Change is normal, and I desperately wanted to be normal, and so I chalked it up to clumsiness on my part and let it slide. The second thing I noticed was that he'd get jealous and was prone to rages. I would go on outings with a man, Francis, who was 46 at the time and also European. He and I would go to Golden Gate Park, and he would take me to UC Berkeley and art museums. He and I did things together and had an amazing time, because I felt alive. Slowly, Anton began to insert himself into our outings by throwing screaming fits and smashing glasses, hurling books at me, hurting the cat, and terrorizing us until Anne decided to placate him by allowing him to come with Francis and me wherever we went. The moment I realized something was off was when I arrived back pretty early in the morning, around 3 a.m. to be exact. I walked into my room and it had been tossed. My panty drawer was open and nothing had been left untouched. My bed had been slept in or been in. The pillows and blankets had been obviously rustled and disturbed. The stench of my perfume was heavy in the air. My trash was various sanitary items had been picked through, and my diary was gone. Needless to say, I freaked. The house was silent though, and I didn't want to disturb the peace, and so I let the rest of my night be spent cleaning and reorganizing to the best of my abilities. Morning came, the turning point. I didn't know San Fran perfectly because I'd only been there for about 3.5 weeks at this point, and I still had a few months left. I had a free day, and so I decided to go down to the beach and have lunch by myself. I told Grandma and her friends that I'd be gone for the day, and I set off by myself. I made a few detours and stopped to look at things and buy things. I made so many stops that there's no way Anton could have followed me without me knowing, but when I arrived to walk the beach, he was there. I remember this so clearly. He was hunched over and facing away from me, and he had one of his notebooks, and he was speaking into the air in Polish as he wrote. The beach was basically empty, and it was obviously going to rain. The sky was pretty damn black. Since he was looking down and focused on his writing, and I was wearing a cargo skirt with lots of pockets, I thought that if I could silently put the small things in my hands into my pockets, I could pull a runner. I had to get out of there. Either I'd go to the beach where I'd find someone and get help, or hit the rough water and pray he didn't follow me, or I'd run into a store and hope that they'd help me. I managed to maneuver everything in my pockets and turned to head off. He almost seemed to know that I was trying to go. As soon as I turned, he turned and said, "Hi, Elita." I think he was moving slowly to scare me, but I was frozen in place as he put his little moleskine in his pocket and started towards me. Then the world started moving normally again, and as he started towards me, I ran towards the beach. I think he was as shocked as I was because I had a head start. I had gone past him, but I was running on sand and it wasn't working out for me. While he ran towards me, he was alternating between screaming in Polish and screaming in English that he'd cut my eyes out and carve me up like how they did during the war, and that he'd mess me up so badly that I'd never dance again. And he'd carve my face up so badly that he'd be the only guy that would ever want me. And that would be okay since he truly loved me. I turned and he literally had a switchblade and was coming for me. And it was like my fight or flight snapped into place because I somehow knew that I had been set up. And I was mad because I wasn't destined to die on the beach by his hand. I somehow made it to the beach barely able to breathe and hit the hard parking lot breathing and running hard. Then he was right behind me, fire in his eyes, and he pushed me so hard that I flew, skidding across the pavement, ripping my arm and legs up. My head slammed into the ground so hard that I thought my neck had cracked. He got on top of me while I was dazed and waved his blade right above my face and said, "I will carve out your Achilles heels and carve hunks of your muscle out of your legs. I'll carve your face. You belong to me and we belong together. My summer was in my control and peaceful until you ruined it." He said this in a perfectly calm voice. It slowly occurred to me that I was probably going to die, and there was something in my brain that told me to just accept it. I could feel myself bleeding, and I was somehow calm and collected while he was crying and screaming at me, and his spit was flying into my face. Then it happened. I somehow managed to get a handful of sand and gravel into my hand and throw it in his eyes and mouth. He faltered for a split second, and I somehow managed to scamper to my feet and stumble into a run with the last strength I had. I made it into a little souvenir store, and this horrified woman called the police and sat with me and pressed a tie-dye t-shirt against my scrapes until the authorities arrived. I didn't need stitches or anything, just a lot of bandaging and ice packs. As I had suspected, Anne had told Anne where I was going because he had said that he wanted to spend the afternoon with me. I do blame her because it had been obvious what he was going to do. It came out later that she had known that he had been using my things to masturbate in the bed that I'd been sleeping in. He had written me 30-plus long-page letters that she had removed from my room. He talked to me about her endlessly, and she allowed him to lapse into delusions about me. The worst thing that she did was immediately getting him back to his family in Poland the second it seemed like he may have been arrested. I have blame as well. I had known to stay clear of him, and yet I ventured off alone. I never mentioned my fears to anyone, and I didn't bring anything to protect myself. I still dance, more than I did before. I think I'm even better now. The scars faded. I call Sophie now and then, and I stay far from Warsaw. Sophie called me the other day to warn me that Anne would be coming to America to do his last 2 years of university here. She offered to give me the necessary documents to report him to his university. And so, Anne, if you're listening to this, stay the heck out of my city.